Hello, everyone. I'm Randy Arrington, and welcome to another special episode of Page Valley Living as we continue our 3-week dive into local politics. Now, last week we featured the race for the District 1 seat on the Page County Board of Supervisors, and you can find that video on our website at pagevalleynews.com or on our YouTube channel. This week we'll be featuring the race for chairman on the Page County Board of Supervisors. And we should mention here that we are also planning a fourth forum that we're going to have in 2 weeks from now when we're going to swing back around and catch the write-in candidates for the District 1 seat on the Page County School Board. We had not originally planned that forum, but we've had several requests, and now that there are two write-in candidates in that race, and it's not an uncontested race, we are going to go ahead and move forward with plans for that fourth forum. During these candidate forums, we'll be putting candidates in these contested races side by side to share and discuss their views on county issues. We are recording all 4 of these forums in the Stanley Fire Hall, and we'd like to take this opportunity to thank all of the volunteers with the Stanley Volunteer Fire Department for allowing us to use this facility. Tonight, as we said, we focus on the race for chairman for the Page County Board of Supervisors, and with us tonight are Jared Burner and Clifton Bucky Thomas. And we thank both of these gentlemen for participating in this effort to inform the voters. We are filming tonight's forum on Monday, September the 22nd, and we'll be airing this video on Wednesday, September the 24th. We'll be asking questions of the candidates in 2 separate segments. The first being basic questions like the ones they have answered or that we sent out in Q&As to the candidates back in August, which can be found on our website, pagevalleynews.com, under the County News category. The second segment will feature more specific questions on specific issues facing our county. So sit back and enjoy this third candidate forum, which will get underway in just a moment after a word from our sponsor.
Whispering Pines Assisted Living is now accepting new admissions. Quality care at affordable rates, professionally trained staff, memory support, and short-term respite stays are all offered by Whispering Pines Assisted Living, powered by Valley Care Management, where home and heart meet. Call for a tour today on Leakesville Road in Luray or learn more at valleycaremanagement.com.
Welcome back, everyone, to the third of our 4 candidate forums here in contested races in this year's Page County elections. As we stated earlier, there will be a fourth coming up when we'll focus on the 2 write-in candidates from the District 1 school board seat. We had not originally planned for that, but we are going to do that coming up in 2 weeks from now. We'll feature that race. Tonight, as we said earlier, we're focusing on the race for the chairman of the Page County Board of Supervisors. And with us, I'll say once again, is Jared Burner and Clifton Bucky Thomas. And I do want to thank both of you gentlemen for participating and being here tonight in this process to educate the voters.
Thank you.
Now, as we had stated in our earlier forums, each candidate will have 2 minutes to answer each question. Rebuttals are allowed in this forum of up to 1 minute each. Candidates did not receive the questions in advance, so they do not know the questions coming. And as stated earlier, the first segment will start off with a few basic questions. So now we're going to get started, and we're going to ask each candidate to give an opening statement telling us who they are and why they are running for public office. And we're going to go back and forth between the candidates of who starts, and we're going to go in alphabetical order and start this first question with Mr. Burner.
Yeah, so I'm Jared Burner. I'm looking to run for chairman of the Board of Supervisors. I feel like that Page County's at a crossroads, and with serving on the Planning Commission and chairing that commission, we've done a lot of hard work on the Planning Commission that is trying to position the county for a better future, and would just like to, as chairman of the Board of Supervisors, to see that hard work put through so that we can make a better future for all generations.
Fantastic. And now we'll go over and get the opening statement from Mr. Thomas. Tell us, folks, who you are and why you're running for public office.
Thank you. Bucky Thomas, for those of you that don't know me, I'm a lifelong resident, born and raised here in Page County. I would first like to thank Mr. Arrington and Page Valley News for hosting the forum. I think it's a great way for our community to connect with us and get to know us a little better. Thanks, Mr. Burner, for the opportunity to talk together. I think this is a great advantage for us to be able to get to have an open dialogue. Like I said, I'm born and raised here in Page County. I went to Luray High School and then graduated, went to James Madison University. So I feel like I've got the qualifications to do the job for the chairman of the Board of Supervisors. Like Mr. Burner said, it's about the county. This isn't about me. Now that I'm at a point in my life where I have a little bit more capacity to serve, it's time for me to give back to the community, and I look forward to serving the county and getting more involved in local.
Very well, very well. Well, we're off and running. Good start. Now we get to question number 2 here. We're going to ask each candidate to talk about their qualifications for the office that they're running for, chairman of the Page County Board of Supervisors, and why they are the best candidate for this position. And we're going to start this question with Mr. Thomas.
Thank you. Like I started to get into previously, I went to JMU, graduated with a degree in business. After that, I was fortunate enough to find good employment here in the local area. Went to work for Wrangler Jeans, VF Jeanswear back in the day, and they taught me a lot. They've trained me a lot. I spent 13 years there. Unfortunately, with the downsizing in the economy and some changes and shifts in manufacturing, I had to leave there at that time and ran my own business for a short period of time, about 5 or 6 years. My wife and I, we were successful, and I enjoyed that. It gave me a different perspective and kind of a broader understanding of running a business or running an operation from beginning to end. After that, I went to work for Cisco Foods and Front Royal. Unfortunately, I had to commute out of the county for about 15 years there. I had a good career. I learned a lot, and now I've had the opportunity to come back to the county, so I'm now back running the Wrangler Distribution Center here, Contour Brands now. So I have over 35 years of business experience. My specialty is in budgets and managing budgets. I've been held accountable to a very tight operating budget. We've had to create budgets, we've had to manage budgets, and then be held accountable to that budget. So I feel like that's a very good opportunity for me to bring what I know and what I can use to help the county, is to understand that those, how critical budgets are to the county. And I feel like that's one of the primary responsibilities for the Board of Supervisors, is to manage our finances for the county. So I want to take those skills and benefit and serve the county in the best way I can. I hold myself accountable, I hold others accountable, and I'm a good listener. So I think I'm the perfect candidate right now for the chairman of the Board of Supervisors.
Very well. And now we'll turn to Mr. Burner and ask him to talk about your qualifications and why you think you're the best candidate for this office.
Like Mr. Thomas, I mean, I'm a lifelong resident. I graduated from Luray High School. Basically, the only time I've been away from Page County for a many long time, I attended Virginia Tech, where I earned a bachelor's degree in both animal and poultry science and then agricultural and applied economics. Decided to stay a little bit longer to top off and earn my master's degree in agricultural and applied economics. Upon doing that, I returned home to Trio Farms, where I work alongside of my dad and my family. We're a multi-generation farm. Been around since the early 50s and since we've been farming. I've had the opportunity to serve at the pleasure of the governor on the Virginia Cattle Industry Board, which that board is the overseer for the tax money that the cattle bring in and then is used for marketing Virginia cattle to different locations throughout the United States and the country. I also in the past have served as chairman of the Luray Page Chamber of Commerce. We work pretty closely with the managing the different businesses, or looking at different businesses within the community, as well at the time when the chamber managed the TOT fund. Very well included in that, what all was involved with that, what the purpose is, and how to make that thing an investment for the community. Currently, I serve on F&M Bank's Agricultural Advisory Board, have for several years. And on top of that, I've served on the Planning Commission for the last 6 years, the last 4 being the chairman. So I've kind of feel like I've been building towards this position as chairman of the board. Just kind of grooming, being able to see, different perspectives throughout the state, different perspectives throughout the county, having a wide range of information from different citizens of all kinds of groups. So that's kind of why I feel like I'm fairly well suited for the position of the chairman. Being in those roles is I've had to listen, I've had to, find a decision process and make a decision that was sound for everyone.
Right. Well, I'm going to throw you a curveball here. As a former Hokie, you got any answers for the football team?
I'm not sure even money's going to fix that one, so I'm not sure on that.
I tell you, I got to say that the Dukes are kind of rolling pretty good so far.
Of course, they're in a bigger league now, so
that's right. Well, so far so good. They played Louisville tough. All right, we're getting back to politics now. Get off of football. What is our third question here? And we're going to start with Mr. Burner on this one. What do you think are some of Page County's strengths, and how would you maintain or improve those strengths?
So, you're going to hear a lot of times how, Page County has natural beauty, natural character, the rural setting, and I don't deny that is a positive and a benefit to the community, but when you sit down and you break it down, the number one asset to our community is our people. They're the ones that make this all work. They're the ones that are resilient. They're the ones that have maintained Page County. And so that is our priority. Now, how we improve their lives is, we expand options of jobs that, ag and tourism is our number 1 and 2 industries, but not everybody's involved in agriculture and tourism. So we need a diversity of industries to support those people. We need to make sure that when they're doing their budgets, that they're able to, at the end of the day, pencil out their budget so they're not operating in a negative deficit. So, like I said, I think our strengths are boiled down to basically the people of the community.
Very well. And we'll turn now to Mr. Thomas. And what do you think are some of Page County's strengths, and how would you maintain or improve those strengths?
Absolutely. So certainly I have to agree with Mr. Burner. I think the people in our county is by far our greatest asset. I've had the privilege to travel, I won't say all over the world, but certainly to certain parts of the world, to Europe and Central America, and I've got to see a lot of places, meet a lot of folks, and there's no place like home. And I've had the opportunity to relocate, take promotions and advancement opportunities with my job and with my career, and every time, if that required moving, I turned that down because this is home, this is where my heart is, and this is where I'm dedicated to Page County. So I want to be here, and the biggest reason of that, again, is the people, but certainly our biggest advantage outside of our people is our natural resources. A lot of the people I work with, former bosses, colleagues, when they all visit me here, they just continue to remark about how great the county is and how beautiful it is and how lucky I am to live here. And I certainly know that, and I share that with them and tell them, yeah, I understand that. And that's why I stay here, and that's why I'm going to retire here and spend my entire life here. So those are our strengths, the people and our natural beauty, and I'll call it a natural resource, just the mountains and the rivers, and what we have to do is protect them. And as chairman of the board of supervisors, that's what I would do. They are a natural resource. They're here to use to benefit the people of the county, but primarily we have to protect those and make sure that we don't change the character of the county. We don't mar our landscape, and certainly we don't trash it, or we don't, I'll call it pollute it with commercialization and overgrow it and overdevelop it. If we do that, then we've kind of lost who we are as a county. So I think we have to kind of hold the line at some point and make sure we protect our natural resources and keep Page County the beautiful place that it is.
Well, in this setting, my opinion doesn't matter much, but I agree with both of you. The Page County is a very, very special place. So we're going to take that question and we're going to flip it. So we're going to start with Mr. Thomas and ask you, what do you think are some of the biggest challenges facing Page County, and how would you address them?
Sure. So our advantage is also our disadvantage. So we're a small rural county, and while that makes us special and a beautiful place to be, it does pose challenges for funding. We don't have the large tax base that some of our neighboring counties have. We don't have that large of a population. We don't have the large industry, the large commercial operations to sort of fund some of the things we want in the county. So our biggest challenge is truly our finances and how we get those monies, and how to get creative in trying to fund things for the county. I mean, we all want more. We all want things in the county. There are services that other counties have that, we would like to see here, whether it's recreation or, better roads or better buildings. There's always things that we would like to see improved. But not having that large tax base obviously makes that more difficult. So I think that's why I'm a perfect fit for the job right now, because again, I'm going to bring that expertise that I've made my career with budgets and finances and being held accountable to that budget. I'm going to use those skills and abilities to try to find every available penny that we can for the county and make sure that we spend fiscally responsible. And wherever there's opportunity to save money, we certainly will. I'm not a fan of taxes, so I certainly would not propose raising taxes. So I want to go to the other side of the revenue side of the financial equation and try to make sure that we take every advantage of every cent that we have and make sure those resources are spent wisely.
Okay, and we'll pose the same question now to Mr. Burner. What do you think are some of the biggest challenges facing Page County, and how would you address them?
Well, like Mr. Tom said, we are a smaller community. We're a rural community. We have a smaller tax base, but we still have the same needs that other communities have. And we have to figure out a way to be able to budget that into effect so that we're not putting the citizens themselves on a tax burden. I think that's going to, it gives us some options to where we need to either bring in other industries to help support that tax base so you can take some of the burden off the people. But even that has its own challenges. Like other larger communities are more set up with their water and sewer infrastructure, whereas in this community, where some areas have availability, the roads might not be in the best conditions to support the industry that comes in, and where the roads may be, maybe that infrastructure is tapped out. So I think we're kind of at a disadvantage when it comes to being able to compete to bring in other industries that would help alleviate some of that issue. So I would say that's probably our biggest weakness.
Very good. Well, that brings us to a conclusion here in our first segment, and we're to come back in our next segment in just a moment after another word from our sponsor.
Hawksbill Assisted Living in Luray is now accepting new admissions. Hawksbill Assisted Living, powered by Valley Care Management, offers quality care at affordable rates, professionally trained staff, and veterans aid and attendance. Come visit Hawksbill Assisted Living, located near the beautiful Hawksbill Greenway in Luray. Call for a tour today or learn more at valleycaremanagement.com.
Welcome back, everyone, now to our second segment for tonight's candidate forum. Again, we're here doing the chairman race for the Page County Board of Supervisors with Jared Burner and Bucky Thomas. And we're going to start now in their second segment. As we promised earlier, these are going to be a little bit more detailed than the earlier questions. And if you watched our earlier forum about the District 1 race, you're going to find them kind of familiar. So here we go for the first question. And this one is going to start with Mr. Burner. The Page County Economic Development Authority, or EDA, has put up 59 plus acres of county-owned land for sale on Goodrich Road. Now, I will pause here for the viewers. If you watched our last forum, we gave a little bit of the background on that land. That was part of Project Clover. It was purchased to be sort of an industrial park many years ago. The land was originally zoned agriculture, and when it was rezoned industrial, the price went up quite a bit. The county paid quite a bit. The EDA is now looking to recoup some of that money. That was a big topic at the most recent Board of Supervisors meeting. Some citizens spoke out about that. So basically, the question is, what do you think should be done with that land?
So there are several different options. EDA has developers that they're supposed to be submitting bids. Now, whether anybody submitted a bid, who knows?
Right.
You also have to take into effect what the surrounding area of that property looks like. When that property was bought in 2009, there was big ideas, we're going to put industry here. Well, they just simply never came to fruition. Mm-hmm. And so in order what we've talked about earlier, we're preserving the natural character and things like that. Need to take a look around and see, that's an area that typically has larger homes on somewhat larger lots. The EDA tried to rezone that property a couple years ago to agriculture, and basically the Planning Commission turned it down for a multitude of reasons, but one of the reasons is that when that property was going to be divided, most of the lots were going to be between 7 and 8 acres, and most of them would claim land use. So therefore, we felt like it wasn't the best investment from a taxpayer standpoint, that if they're going to be collecting land use, we're only going to be collecting about 10 acres worth of those 59 acres worth of actual real estate value. So, you know, it is good that they are potentially looking at residential development that has a smaller lot capacity, so that you can maximize the value on the real estate taxes for those properties, and maybe try to recoup some of the money. Let's just say that if a developer doesn't come in, the EDA has options that they can come back for rezonings. They could potentially develop the property. The Planning Commission has been considering a rural residential zone, which is a long process to introduce a new zone, but it's something that we feel like there could be a potential fit up there, where it's a balance of housing and commercial development, light commercial, retail commercial, maybe even something potentially as a rec center. It's all going to be budget dependent, but that would give the community an opportunity to recoup some of the $1 million that was used to buy that property. You know, we can sit here and we can argue over what the true best use is. We can try to come up with the best use for that property, but at the end of the day, it hasn't been generating hardly any revenue since 2009, and it's time to do something with it to be able to provide growth somewhere else in the county.
Okay. And I'll repeat the question now for Mr. Thomas. Page County Economic Development Authority, or EDA, has put up 59 plus acres of county-owned land for sale on Goodrich Road. What do you think should be done with that land?
Certainly. I agree with Mr. Burner's comments. You know, unfortunately, it seems like we're kind of in a rock and a hard place here. We made what I would consider, in my opinion, a bad investment initially. We spent a lot of money on a piece of property coming from a commercial operation and industry. I would say has limited potential use for industry. Obviously, with the road system in and out of there, it's not ideal for any kind of true industrial development. Potentially, there may be some small light industry that could take advantage of it that doesn't need huge truck traffic and good road access. Obviously, that would probably be the best value, is the initial intent for the property. Trying to find a suitor. Obviously, we've been sitting on it for some period of time now, so trying to find someone to come in and be able to fit that scenario is going to be difficult. Certainly think the EDA needs to involve the Board of Supervisors and stay in dialogue and make sure we all are aware of what's going on and can kind of hold hands and move forward together. Doesn't mean we're always going to agree. Certainly we're going to have disagreements and opinions that we need to consider. But, you know, at the end of the day, if we can't find that ideal industry to come in and take advantage of the property as it was initially designed or designated, I think we need to make the best of a situation. A mixed use, commercial and residential, may be the best option. I would certainly not want to lose money on the property at this point in time. I mean, I think we need to try every avenue first. But at the end of the day, that looks like what it's probably going to end up being, either reverted back to an agricultural use at a substantial loss for the county's finances, or a mixed, you know, residential, small commercial development where we're still not going to retain all of our investment, but would minimize some of our losses at this point.
Well, as a transition into our next question, to refresh the memory of some of our viewers out there, so it was more than 15 years ago that Project Clover came about, and this land was set up as a sort of an industrial park, and it was a data center that was supposed to locate there. Premier Technical Services, I believe, and they even got a $300,000 government opportunity fund grant. Not sure where that money went, but kind of disappeared. But nothing was ever done out there. That project fell through, and so now one of the fears for those 59 acres is the current potential for a data center at that location. And I'm going to start with you, Mr. Thomas. Do you think that there is a real threat of data centers trying to come to Page County, and how would you react to that?
I certainly feel that the threat is potentially real. Obviously, there's a high demand out there for data centers. Virginia's kind of become known as the data capital, the sort of the mecca center of, the new not industrial age, but computer age with the data centers.
Right.
And Virginia's kind of taken on the California appearance on the East Coast. And so it's real. They're looking for properties. The demand's there. In general, I'm not a fan of data centers. I think that the potential for the impact is very heavy and the benefit's very small. If you look at some of the projects going on, I know down in Frederick County, there's a 600-acre plus property that they're developing or they've got approved to develop for a data center. I don't think that's a good idea. I mean, that's a large impact. That's a lot of farmland. That's visually, that's going to be very difficult to absorb into a community.
Right.
In general, data centers on a small scale may be okay, but you would have to put up, aesthetics around it and try to camouflage it in. I just don't think it's a good fit for Page County. We don't have the infrastructure in place to support it. You would have to bring in a lot of electrical supporting network, and where that money is going to come from, I'm afraid that the current residents would end up taking the brunt of the bill for that initial infrastructure investment. Right. To serve the data center. They're going to need water, and then what do you do with the wastewater? And at the end of the day, you're going to have a handful of people there in some sort of maintenance or security roles. There's really not a lot of high-paying jobs there that would benefit our county. So at the end of the day, I don't think it's a great idea for a data center in Page
Right.
County.
Yeah, Virginia has certainly changed with the Google
Yes.
project and things like that. That's a huge one. Thank goodness, maybe not too close to us, but yeah, it has changed the landscape in Virginia for that. So I'll pose the question now to Mr. Burner. As I mentioned earlier, one of the fears for those 59 acres on Goodrich Road is the potential for a data center to maybe locate there or try to locate there. Do you think there is a real threat of data centers coming to Page County, and how would you react to that?
I don't feel there's a real threat for data centers to come to Page County, and here's the main reason why is that currently in our zoning ordinance we do not specifically mention data centers, and it is by zoning rules if you don't specifically mention something, it's not an allowed use. So currently we do not allow the use for data centers. However, lawyers get involved, and paperwork gets filed because two lawyers have argued with each other. We found that would happen with solar, and solar kind of was kind of what the precursor was for data centers, and I think we've learned a little bit in that thing. The reason why I don't feel that the threat is truly real is because it's the power of the public and the power of ordinances. When we wrote the solar ordinance, we listened to the public. We wrote the ordinance to say, all right, if we can mitigate all of your concerns, what would you like to see? And we wrote all of those concerns in as things that they had to mitigate, such as the aesthetics, such as the setbacks, screening, everything. And so I feel like we've better positioned ourselves by going through solar to know how to handle the data centers. Mm-hmm. The reason that I mentioned it in my pre-interview when we did the articles a while back was that where we screwed up with solar was we waited till somebody was at our front door. Right. We need to take advantage, and I know it's a difficult conversation, but we need to have an honest conversation about if we were to mitigate all our concerns, what kind of data centers will we see? I understand the transmission line, the water usage, and as far as the EDA properties go, that property there pretty much is knocked out from every possible use for a data center. So I don't think there's any fear of a data center ever locating there just because of the infrastructure that surrounds it. Right. The one thing I think that we need to is leaders of a community is evaluate an emerging industry fairly. There is a lot of fear that goes around with data centers. Some of it's based on misunderstanding, but I'll also say that in the past, I've had employees that were part of the VOTEC program. Well, their current employer is data centers. They wire data centers nonstop. So I think we owe it to have a fair conversation in front of the public because we've got people on both sides of it in the community.
Right.
Just one quick comment.
Yeah, so we'll do a 1 minute rebuttal. Sure.
I completely agree with Mr. Burner, and I would look forward to working with the Planning Commission and making sure we address the potential for data centers. But I completely agree. We got to get out in front of it, kind of understand what we can and what we cannot support in the county, and try to clearly lay that out and make sure that they know that going in, because I don't want to get in a situation where they've got their lawyers talking to our lawyers and trying to push something, and I've mentioned it before. In the previous commentary where, I think that's where we need to get in front of it and plan out what we would do and what's right for Page County so that we don't get behind the process and then try to recover and put up blocks after the process has already started.
Right, right. And in fairness of equal time, I'm going to give Mr. Burner another minute to address the issue.
I mean, I think I fairly said what I needed to on data centers. I say, it's just, I invite the conversation so that we can put a solution and put people's minds at ease. That would be my big thing about data centers.
I would throw in one other thing about that property out there. When they were trying to develop it under Project Clover, they were talking about a railroad spur, and they couldn't do that. And so there were several holdups to that. And sitting here in the town of Stanley and the Stanley Fire Hall, I would be remiss if I didn't at least, I'm going to throw it out there, and then we're just going to let it hang. But the county at the time, of course, you all had nothing to do with that, had promised the town of Stanley a little help with their well number 7 as part of that project. And they're just now beginning to finish that project up after almost a couple decades or so. And it's something they joke about and talk about from time to time in their council meetings, that maybe the county will come around one day, and I'm just going to let that float in the air and and we'll move right on. But I had to do that for the mayor and council. So let's move on to another issue here, short-term rentals. That's been a hot button issue in the towns and in the county. And we're going to start this question with Mr. Burner. Short-term rentals, another hot button issue in the county. Do you believe this issue is more perceived or real, and how would you address it?
So short-term rentals, if you look at it on a statistical basis, constitute a small percentage of actual houses in a community. But I had somebody pose this question to me. You always think about it, you always know somebody that has a short-term rental. You know, when the short-term rental industry, when it was booming, when it was running, you know, we didn't bother it too much because, you know, it was self-standing. Now that maybe some of the occupancy rates have dropped and stuff like that, competition, people looking for affordable housing, I think they're going to catch the blame just because they had been successful in the past. You know, I think there are some things we can do zoning-wise to maybe help short-term rentals, but then we're bound by state laws on what we can do. So that kind of puts us at a disadvantage. The short-term rentals, I mean, like I said, with tourism being the number 2 industry, I think they're important. But I also think they're an issue that needs to be mitigated to help create a broader economy. You know, short-term rentals have been a good deal, but I think there is a perception that they're hurting it, and I think that mindset is also putting our citizens at a disadvantage. Not necessarily causing a real effect, but it's the perception that it is causing an effect.
Yeah, I think every tourist town deals with this at some point. So I'll repeat the question here for Mr. Thomas. Short-term rentals, another hot button issue in the county. Do you believe that this issue is more perceived or real, and how would you address it?
Well, just in general, short-term rentals have been a boom for our county. I mean, I know you got into this discussion with the Precinct 1 candidates and kind of went through a lot of the details and the specifics, but it is a fact that the tot tax has brought in a lot of revenue for the county that otherwise we wouldn't have had. So from a revenue side, it's been a good thing for the county. On the flip side of that, it has taken houses off of the market that would potentially have been used for a local resident. So it's another one of those things you've got to manage. There's good and bad with it. We don't want to get into a situation like some of the tourist towns where it's 90% short-term rentals and there's only 10% left for the people that want to live there.
Right.
That's not a successful equation for us. So we've got to find that balance. I think currently it's probably a little tilted. As Mr. Burner referenced, you know, I know people in the industry that have short-term rentals. And, you know, I hear them mention, I'm not booking full like I was. So the supply and demand effect is going to level out that market at some point in time here, which will, in some ways, lower the housing costs for local residents when that demand goes away for all the short-term rentals, but it's not going to completely solve the problem. So what I think is the right thing to do, certainly look forward to working with the Planning Commission and trying to map out those areas where we think this is you know, a good residential area for specifically residents in the county, not necessarily short-term rentals. I vacation myself, and when I go out of town, I typically don't look for a residential neighborhood
Right.
to stay in anyway. So I think we can kind of identify some areas to say, hey, this is a good area for short-term rentals, but no, this area we probably need to protect for residential and try to control the costs and keep that isolated more so to the county residents.
Right. For the,
And just about
yeah,
that,
go
I'll
ahead,
say,
1 minute.
topping off on that, we at the planning commission, we have discussed overlay districts. It's kind of a legal conundrum a little bit about what you can tell somebody they can do with their property when it comes to overlay districts, and we don't want to step on anybody's property rights. But there are specific areas in the county where it's a much higher density of short-term rentals versus residential. And, if we can incorporate overlay districts into that would help do that. The other option we could do is if we can expand our residential zone offerings, and as we place them out, then we can say either short-term rentals are by SUP or they're just not simply allowed. Because where we run into trouble is we've made it a by right option right now. If we remove that option, people are going to consider that a taking, and that's never a good thing, to take away a business opportunity for somebody that may be planning that down the road. So it is a delicate process in order to be able to determine where you can and cannot locate short-term rentals. We may have to do it from the flip side, where we say, hey, this is where we see residential growth, and propose that it's strictly residential growth, not short-term rental growth.
And I want to give Mr. Thomas 1 minute.
No, completely agree. I mean, that's exactly the place I was going at it, and I think on this topic we're pretty well aligned. So yeah, I think it was well stated.
For the purpose of our viewers out there, I gave these numbers last time when we did the District 1 candidate forum. To the best of my knowledge, and anyone can out there correct me if I'm wrong. Jared, you may know better than I, but back about 10 or 15 years ago, when Page County was named the cabin capital of Virginia, there was in the neighborhood of 300 to 400 cabin rentals at that time, short-term rentals. Now with Airbnbs being added on and that kind of thing, the last number that I saw recently in a email promotional piece that came out of the county's economic development department had that number over 600. So I think it has grown in the last decade or decade and a half in the county a little bit. And I think what has alarmed a lot of people is the rate with which permits are being requested, and then we've had quite a few in the last couple of years. So we'll move on from that topic. Actually, we are going to circle back to it in just a moment, but right now we're going to talk about one of the offshoots of that issue, and we're going to start with Mr. Thomas and talk about affordable housing. That is another topic of discussion that residents are bringing up quite constantly, I believe. What can be done to create more affordable housing in Page County?
Certainly a difficult task. I don't think Page County is alone in this problem. It seems to be statewide, nationwide, probably worldwide. It's only gotten worse. I don't know specifically to say here's the magic pill that we can all take and the problem goes away. I think the zoning laws, the zoning plans have a lot to do with it. Mapping out those residential areas may not be ideal places for people, because when you start doing that, you scale down the size of the properties, you get smaller yards, you start seeing smaller houses. We all dream big, we want big yards, big houses, but that's not necessarily affordable. But making housing affordable, a lot of it's going to rely on zoning and how we kind of plan out the districts. Addressing the issue of the short-term rentals, that's putting pressure on it. So again, mapping that into the zoning process will help. I don't think it's a good idea for any government agency to get involved in developing properties. I don't think that's a specialty that any government's going to be successful at. If we would take on an endeavor like that, I would probably see us losing money. But certainly we can work with developers and try to, when we identify these zones or these areas where we try to make housing affordable, there's developers we can work with, there's government grants we can work with to make housing affordable, to make it better. But it's not a problem that we've solved on a state or national level, and it's certainly not something that I think any of us can solve on a local level. There are things we can do to make it better, but that problem's not going to go away in total.
All right, and I'll repeat the question for Mr. Burner here. Affordable housing, another topic of discussion among residents. What can be done to create more affordable housing in Page County?
So the one thing I want to start off by saying is we make sure that we understand that affordable housing is not cheap housing. That's not the basis of the definition of that. So when I talk about affordable housing, I'm thinking about it as a man of family. You're sitting down at a dinner table at night, you're going, hey, this is what my budget looks like. You know, the housing is only a component of that. It's the other components that help make that budget, that's what makes it affordable. And so I think we need, affordable housing is not simply just the housing component, it's the full system that's around it. It's the jobs, the quality, sustainable jobs that we can offer to families and stuff that come back to basically get into that starter home. That's one side of it. The other side of it, as Mr. Thomas was referring to on the zoning side, is that, you know, we have a comprehensive plan that has the growth tiers. We have primary, secondary growth tiers within that component. You know, the whole entire principle of that is that we want to concentrate growth towards the primary, then out to the secondary. So by nature, the density increases as you get to those things. Well, the 3 towns are our growth areas. So I think as county leaders, we need to find ways to work with the towns to increase affordable housing options within those units. That way they're closer to the industries that people are working in. Let's say if they can't afford a car, but they can make their monthly payment, well, then they can walk to work. It's you know, it's those kind of things. It's the placement of that affordable housing, getting the lot size smaller. We have in a subdivision in the county, we come from a top-down approach, and basically, you know, we're going 25, 12 and a half, 6 1/4, and we see a lot of times that the property stops at 6 1/4. Well, you're adding an additional 4.5 to 5 acres on top of somebody that, as a starter home, may not need to incur that additional cost. But as they get older in life and they sell that starter home to a younger family, then they can move into that. So that's why I think we need coordination with the towns, in coordination with our comprehensive plan, the growth tiers, in order to locate these affordable housing areas for people that are strategically placed so that they are budget friendly for the citizens of Page County.
Yeah, you want to
Just one comment. I completely agree with Mr. Burner. I was just going to say, I think sometimes we get caught up in not necessarily, we refer to it as affordable housing, but we're often looking at the American dream, because affordable housing may be an apartment complex. I mean, and there's things we can do to work with developers on building additional apartments. We've done some of that already and been successful in the county. But I think we need to understand from our folks when we hear there's no affordable or not enough affordable housing. Well, are you referencing affordable housing? Or are you referencing your personal dream house with, you know, a large spread and a big house? Because those are two separate things. There's things we can do to make some housing affordable or add additional affordable housing, but it might not necessarily be that dream house that someone's looking for as well. So.
Sure, an additional minute here as well.
Yeah, and I agree. I mean, it's just as you come out of high school, you know, you got your goals, your family and everything like that. Well, you have to have a life plan. You can't have a 5,000 square foot mansion right out of high school. You have to work within the means of your own budget. But I think that in the county, we don't necessarily do as good of a job of offering that intermediary housing. We go from either apartments or large homes on large lots. I think there's a gap there that could be bridged that would maybe do better at retaining some of the youth that we have, you know, go out to other areas, and then once they go from college, they relocate somewhere else. You know, that maybe if we had those kind of options to bring them back so that life's not so unaffordable, you know, we would be able to sustain more of a demographic across all ages.
And again, I'm just going to interject one thing here for the viewer's perspective on this. Of course, we had Luray Meadows, the project through People Inc. out behind Walmart, or near the airport rather, and I think that filled up immediately and has a waiting list there, which has some very affordable apartments over there. But I would be remiss if I didn't note that I believe in every 6 months on Page Valley News, we do a kind of report on real estate and kind of where we are. And I believe in 2018, the average sale price of a home in Page County was somewhere around 170 some thousand, 175, maybe 180. But it was in that neighborhood. 7 years later, now in 2025, we're looking at 3 1/4, almost $350,000 now for the average sale of a home. And of course, you know, real estate prices are not isolated to Page County. It's dependent on interest rates and things, and rates have gone up and costs have gone up in other places as well. But just to give a perspective, it's almost doubled in 7 years for the average sale price of a home. So swinging back around to short-term rentals, during the last, and we're going to start with Mr. Burner on this one, swinging back around to that, and during the last budget cycle, The Board of Supervisors decided to raise the transit occupancy tax, or what is referred to as TOT, to 10% in lieu of raising levies on real estate and personal property. Do you agree with that decision, and why or why not?
Well, I agree with it because that deficit has to be made up regardless. I mean, we can talk about budget issues, cost management, revenue management on that side, but at the end of the day, that deficit had to come from somewhere. And I understand that there are some cabin owners that are frustrated that it went to 10%. But on the flip side of that is that if the board had to compensate by raising real estate and personal property tax, that cabin owner is still going to pay an increased real estate rate. They're still going to increase the raise personal property tax on the items that are within the house. So they're still paying it. You know, the 10% is a pass-through expense. I understand that, you know, you might get one or two clients that, say, you know, this is too much, I can't afford it, so we're not going to book. That's happened. There's an elasticity to a price increase. But when you move it over to the real estate and the personal property thing, that becomes a fixed cost that you now need to accommodate or account for at the end of the day, so that you're able to pay that and it's not taken off of your bottom line. I think the TOT catches a lot of slack just because it's the current climate when it comes to the short-term rentals. I think we've seen a greater saturation of places to stay within the region. You're looking at people from outside the area that may not have as prolific of a budget, so instead of taking several weekend trips plus a large trip, they may just refer to just one large trip. So I think we're seeing a decrease in occupancy from other sides, and I think that's why when the 10% was increased, people looked at it as, well, that kind of killed my business. No, I think the external factors killed it. The 10%, I think, is when you look at it as a benefit to the community, it benefits a greater number of people while lessening the burden on the others. And we've always said, you know, we love tourism in the county, but there are days when the traffic, the extra services, that has to be accounted for, and we can't rely on our citizens to pay for the services of somebody that's coming in to visit. So I agree with the 10%.
Okay, and I'm going to repeat the question for Mr. Thomas here. Going back to short-term rentals, during the last budget cycle, the Board of Supervisors decided to raise the transient occupancy tax to 10% in lieu of raising levies on real estate and personal property. Do you agree with that decision, and why or why not?
Yeah, along with Mr. Burner, I agree with the decision. Probably a little bit slanted just because I don't own rental properties and I'm not exposed to the tax, but it would have been obviously exposed on the real estate and personal property increases. But in general, I think it's been a good thing for the county. 10% is a lot. It's double what most counties are around us. But we have some of the natural resources we referenced earlier to offset that and still bring in the demand and still have people come here. So I agree with Mr. Burner. I don't think that was the impact to the industry and the reduction in rentals. I believe we hit a spike during the COVID era when a lot of people changed their travel habits and maybe didn't get on a plane and travel long distances. They were coming out of Northern Virginia, D.C. area, coming out here on shorter stays closer to home during that period, and I think we saw an artificial spike in demand. Had a lot of people flood into the market, bought up property, bought up houses, switched them over to short-term rentals, and at that point, you know, it kind of saturated the market. And now we're kind of settling back down to where we're supposed to be. So I think, I don't think we lost any demand simply because of the tax. And again, that's paid by non-residents. So I'm in favor of anything we can do to capture revenue from people that don't necessarily live in Page County. We need to take advantage of them while we're here, while the visitors are here, and try to capture some revenue from them. And so this is one of those ways, and I think it was a great idea.
Very well, very well. All right, gentlemen, y'all are holding up well. We're getting down towards the end now, and we're going to go to our last question before closing statements, and we are going to start with Mr. Thomas on this one, and it's another budget question. The school budget is by far the largest portion of the overall county budget. Do you feel the county is doing enough to support our schools, and are they adequately funded, or should more be done?
So I think the school system being the largest expense for the county certainly makes sense. Our children are our most valuable asset. I volunteer for the Page County Technical Center Foundation Board. Didn't mention that earlier, but very big supporter of education. There's nothing more valuable than our youth. I think we owe it to them to make sure that we provide the opportunity. It's their choice whether they take advantage of it or not, but we need to offer them the opportunity for a good quality education. So the money that we spend in schools is well spent. It's an investment that we should focus on and spend money on. Having said that, like any other department, I think we need to look at their expenses. I would try to help them make sure that they're spending that money wisely. I can't support waste in any department, so I would look forward to working with Dr. Hoover and the school administration and our school board to make sure that we spend the money wisely and invest heavily in our youth. I think that's the best use of our money.
Okay, and I'll repeat the question for Mr. Burner now. School budget, of course, largest portion of the overall county budget. Do you feel the county is doing enough to support our schools, and are they adequately funded, or should we be doing more?
Well, like Mr. Thomas said, I mean, the youth are an investment in the future. I think the dollars you spend there are very wise. I think that, that makes the difference on somebody's future. In addition to just the kids, but also the teachers, making sure that the teachers are well funded. Just like in a hospital administration, they realize that nurses are the front line for that hospital. That's why nurses are well compensated. And I feel like the teachers should be as well. I mean, because those are the people that are educating the youth. But like Mr. Thomas said, it's always some places that areas of funding could be, I wouldn't say cut, but not necessarily better managed. Get a more efficient dollar usage. I think we should look at, the ratios kind of, the teachers to the students, make sure that setting is appropriate so that the student is getting the best education possible. Just as a disclaimer, my mom was a newly retired teacher, so I could hear the ins and outs of the school, and those teachers have a positive impact on those students. So I think the county supporting both not only the kids but the teacher is highly important to the future, not of surrounding areas, but our area. But like I said, I think there are some areas where efficiency could be increased. Unfortunately, at the Board of Supervisors, you may have some say in the budget, but the school board basically they have the final say. But it boils back down to communication, working together. We're all working towards a better future for everyone. So I don't see why it won't be a problem. We can't work together.
Very good. Yeah, please.
Sorry, won't
please.
comment. No fireworks, so
No,
we agree
please,
on
please,
most things.
please.
I just wanted to say nothing disappoints me more than when I talk to someone, a teacher specifically, and they say, I'm commuting to Rockingham County or I'm commuting to Shenandoah County to teach. I think that's symbolic of a problem that we have, and we owe it to ourselves to make sure that those teachers are well compensated and don't go that extra commute and leave the county to go teach. We need the best people here in our county to teach, and we owe that to our youth. And I'll give the Tech Center a plug. Obviously, I'm heavily involved there, so I have a certain leaning and a like to the Tech Center. But I think that is a great opportunity. We've had a lot of great results with our students coming out of that program, and I look for that opportunity to grow. And finding that niche of students that wants to go in that technical route. Right now, that's the best growing jobs. That's the best paying jobs out there. So we need to continue to showcase that facility and those teachers and the Tech Center and take advantage of that and encourage our students to take advantage of it for a good career.
Very good. And Mr. Burner, I want to give you another minute.
So and I completely agree on the Tech Center. I mean, that's a valuable asset to the community. Those trades jobs are heavily needed. And I think that's where one of the areas where we may have been lacking in our future planning of the community is that we need to take a more serious look at what trades those students are going on and how can we support those industries that we're training those students for so that we can retain them here so that they don't have to get up at 5:30, 4 o'clock in the morning and drive to Northern Virginia. That's a drain on the body. How can we complete the system or complete our thought? So yeah, I'm a big fan of the Tech Center. I think it's a wonderful program. I wish we can expand it to more trades, more uses, more things like that. I mean, both of us went to college, but there are plenty of people out there who they work hard every day and they deserve it. And that's who they are. That's their trades people, and I have nothing but respect for them. So I think if we can find ways to work that into the school system, and taking that money that we invest here, how can we turn around and then make that investment pay off for Page County in the long run?
Well, I as full disclosure to our viewing audience, as the moderator has a wife who is a teacher in the system, and our camera operator is a freshman at Luray High School. We enjoyed those answers. Very good, very good. All right, gentlemen, we're heading into the final stretch here. We're going to have an opportunity to do closing statements rather. You guys haven't argued. I appreciate that very much tonight. But be your closing statements, and because we began with Mr. Burner in the opening statement, we're going to begin with Mr. Thomas, and I want you to direct most of you comments have been directed to the audience, but specifically for this one, I want you to direct it straight to the camera and tell voters why they should cast a ballot for you during this election.
Thank you. Again, appreciate the opportunity. I would appreciate your vote. I think that I am the best candidate for the chairman of the Board of Supervisors. You can sum me up in one quick motto: God, family, and country. I follow God without doubt. That comes first. My family is the center of my life. That means everything to me. I'm at a point in my life now where my family probably needs me a little less, as much as that breaks my heart. A little less. My youngest is now in college, so Dad's not needed at home quite as much as he was before, so I now have the time, the energy, and the devotion, and I want to spend that making Page County great. I'm blessed. I've had a great life here, and I want to give back to the community. I have the experience, again, with my background in business and leading people and successfully leading businesses. I want to take that experience and that knowledge and those skills and bring them back to Page County and see us do great things in the county and take Page County to places even higher than it is today. And I'm going to give everything I have and go to work for you, Page County, and the people of Page County to make this place great.
Very well, and Mr. Burner, you will have the last word here, and I want you to address your comments to the camera and the folks out there watching, and tell voters why they should cast a ballot for you in this election.
Yeah, so basically, I appreciate any support that I get come November. Whether I'm the best one, I leave that up to the voters in mind. Everybody's opinion is different, but that doesn't mean at the end of the day we can't all work together, have a conversation, and come to a better place. Basically, this has been my home for a long time. I have an understanding of different generations of what their struggles are, what they go through. And I feel like I can bring that knowledge to the board to try to make a better community for all. I've had the experience in the past of dealing with the community issues, dealing with the zoning component of it. I've been on a trajectory to get to this point. So I feel like I'm fairly qualified for the job. At the end of the day, it all boils down to the citizens. We're all working for them. We're all working to make a better place. So I guess I'll leave it with that.
Very good. Well, again, I want to thank both of you gentlemen for being here tonight. I think you had some very good answers in terms of having substance, some substance in there of what you said tonight, and I appreciate your cordial nature towards each other. I appreciate that very, very much, especially in today's political environment. So as we come to a close here, folks, just a few reminders out there about the election this year. Early voting in person has already begun. It began on Friday, September 19th. If you want, you can walk right in and go around to the backside, going in the basement of the County Government Center, and you go right down the hall, right to the right, and you will find the early in-person voting center there. On October the 14th, that is the last day to register to vote so that you can cast your ballot in this fall's election. On October the 24th, that's the last day that you can request an absentee ballot. So again, October 14th, last day to register. October 24th, last day to request an absentee ballot. And of course, November 4th is Election Day. And if you are voting in person, be it early or on Election Day, please remember to bring a valid ID to the polls. A valid ID is important. And folks, no matter who you vote for, what your political leaning, who you're going to cast your ballot for, make sure you do your civic duty and get out there and vote. Be a part of the democratic process. And we're going to close out our show here. Remember, if you like our show, hit that like button and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Page Valley News, right there on YouTube. We want to thank Eleanor Arrington for all of her work behind the camera and keeping the timer and her work in the editing room all of this week. And as we end up every episode, as we do here at Page Valley Livin', we want to remind you to go down to the Page County Animal Shelter and help one of our furry friends find a forever home. For Jared Burner, for Bucky Thomas here, I'm Randy Arrington from the Stanley Fire Hall here tonight saying make sure you get out there and vote.